Hello. Day, I don't know what is this, like 48? So I didn't do bookwork yesterday and I didn't post a video. Yeah, so today is day 48. So now we've officially missed 2 days of bookwork and maybe 2 days of um, videos. I don't know. I've had to come to terms with that. We're going to drop balls. We're going to drop balls sometimes, and it's okay. What matters is just picking them back up in a capacity that we can. And I try not to be a basket case. I did do work today. I've taken the extra book work off my schedule for Fridays, and I've quit the idea of thinking I'm going to do extra at night because I had said, a couple weeks ago that I wanted to push myself and try to do more and better and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, just doing what I've been doing an hour every day ish. That's making progress. I'm getting there. So, yeah, maybe I'm not going to be done when I initially thought, but how the heck was I to set a realistic goal without ever doing this before? So, I'm doing it, and I'm going to just take away those unrealistic expectations and just try to be consistent with daily work because it wasn't working and then it was making me feel overwhelmed and frustrated and like, why even try? And it's like, I can set the timer for 30 minutes. Know that that's a reasonable, easy amount of time, and then forget about everything else. I can forget about everything else. If I have these unrealistic goals of larger chunks of time, and then I am in the background, tabs are open that are worried about this and this and this and this, all these things I have to get done during the day, then what happens is my mind wanders and then I don't focus on the work that's in front of me. So I'm just kind of figuring this out about myself, and it's like, okay, fine. If you're going to do better work in 30 minutes, just do 30 minutes then and move on. Because why did it take more time not to get more work done, and then I'm not getting other things done too, yet I'm thinking about it's just a whatever. Quite the rant before we read. So I'm considerably closer today, and that's throwing me off, and like I'm not knowing where to put my eyes as I do this video because my position's different, because when I pull up my manuscript to read, it's this is going to be more comfortable. So and the other thing I was going to tell you about that 30-minute thing. So there's this whole thing that like roughly like 10,000 hours is what it takes to become like a master of your craft, whatever it is. Like, it's not about talent or gifting or whatever. I mean, sometimes those things are helpful, especially to get started, but what it's about is time spent. So 10,000 hours, you're a master of your craft. Well, so I was like thinking, well, 30 minutes at a time, that's only 20,000 sessions to become a master. With every one, it's one down. So whatever. I'm going to bring up my manuscript. So now my eyes will change. I've been trying to look at the camera, and so if this video is totally wonky, I'm sorry. We are at already 4 minutes. This is going to be the longest video yet because I don't know how long it's going to take me to read 7 pages. But I'm going to read the scene from the Billy Goat. This is only my first pass. There will be more work. This is 7 pages of you guys, what am I at? I'm at 113 pages of 404. So, this book is about, there's so much. So this is a scene that's sort of hard to share. I know that people that were with me at this time of life like to know that I was in this space at this time of life will be maybe shocking, and then uncomfortable and not good, because I wasn't married at this time, but I married my high school sweetheart who I was with before Gabe, I was with him for 10 years in total. And so our lives were intertwined. When we divorced, it was extremely painful. Some people went with him, some people went with me, some people still talk to us both. I mean, we're talking my family. There's some members of my family that are closer to him still, over 10 years later, than what they are to me. So I can understand that there's people from my life now and Gabe's and from back then all are going to come across this, and so this could elicit some super uncomfortable feelings, and I can tell you I get it. And there's a whole lot of this book that talks about him. That stuff makes like True gets very uncomfortable reading or hearing those parts of the book, but it's my life and it's important and it's all part of the story, and has a point and a purpose, and so just know that like he's one of the humans of my life, and there's a whole lot of the book that's about his wonderfulness. And I did not always live in a place where I was having these thoughts that I'm having in this scene that I'm reading to you now. Gosh, this video is going to be so long and I'm freaking out. Okay, with that said, one last thing, I've changed his name to Henry. I don't know for sure yet if he's comfortable with me using his name in the book. Like, I have it written in the manuscript, so if I, like, it's choppy, it's weird, because I'm going to be trying to read, and I'm going to be trying to replace his name with Henry, and I hope I don't slip. Everybody who's watching this knows his name. This feels like the silliest thing ever. The only reason I'm even changing his name is because if he chooses not to have his name, his real name in the book, like, I don't want there to be this rabbit trail, like his name to be in the videos that I feel like people are going to watch later. Okay, I'm gonna bring up the manuscript now. So, give me a second. My eyes are gonna change. You're gonna see me. I hope that I don't turn like all blotchy, and stuff. So, and while I'm finding this in my manuscript, because did work today already, I already started on a new chapter, and it goes back to when he and I were 17, and it was really fun to write. Like, I just thought, oh man, maybe I'll just forget the scene and read you guys this, but we've got to save some fun and surprise and whatever for the actual book. So this again, like, over the last week and a half back, I think it was video 42 was when I've read the first paragraph out of this scene, and there was definitely interest in me reading the entire scene. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, here we go. I'm going to just pretend that I'm not, like, going to have an audience here. Okay. Karen Shank was turning 21, and a celebration get-together was planned at the Billy Goat Bar and Saloon. I use her last name because she was a UPS driver. Drivers were pretty much always referred to at work by their last names. The references stuck and translated outside of work too. Plus, my mom's name is Karen, so it's all the way around most clear. The bar is about 18 miles out of Durango in a speck of a town called Gem Village, just outside of Bayfield. There isn't a stoplight, and if you blink while driving through, you might miss it. I had never been to the legendary Billy Goat Bar and Saloon, but had always stared it down out the passenger side window when heading home to Colorado Springs. Karen's birthday was the perfect reason to make the trip to Gem Village. I loved Karen. She encompassed the spirit of small but mighty holy. She'd grown up in the small rural community and was downright tough. Honestly, I admired her. Driving for UPS was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life, and standing 4 or 5 inches shorter than me, Karen made the job look like no big deal. With gleaming eyes, she was darn near always smiling and laughing, bringing much-needed joy to the commonly less than joyous environment. The Billy Goat sits right off Highway 160 on the frontage road in Gym Village. It's the type of bar where local drinkers might go every day for 30 years, cantering in as early as 3 p.m. in the afternoon and wobbling out as late as 2 a.m. I'd mentioned wanting to go to Henry, but he didn't show much interest. Sorry. It truly didn't make a lot of sense for us. We lived walking distance from downtown in Durango, so we could drink our hearts out and get home easily. A 20-minute drive to a bar wasn't a great idea and wouldn't be quite as fun since one of us would have to be the designated driver. For Karen's birthday, though, Henry would be out of town hunting, which was perfect. I wouldn't have to bother him with wanting to go. He would have gladly went, but I'd have felt obligated to consider how good of a time he was or wasn't having, which would have compromised my good time. I talked my friend Melinda into going with me. She was a UPS driver too, and the one exception to the last name rule. Melinda was a less common name, and therefore the use of her last name must not have been as necessary. Residing downtown Durango, she'd also wanted to check out the Billy Goat and was friends with Karen. She also agreed to drive, making it the most ideal arrangement ever. The small town bar was just what you might expect. Everything except the jukebox, pool table, and vinyl covered chairs were made out of wood. The building, facade, porch, flooring, stage, tables, and bar were all made with or finished in some variety of wood. The cohesion regarding the interior design concept seemingly had lied in the convenience of whatever lumber had been on hand for improvements over the years. The floor that led in was my very favorite kind of floor to walk on, with leather-soled lacacies. Each step clicked harmoniously as if to a song written by the old building, and sent the subtlest of vibrations up my legs. The old porch warranted suggestions that an outlaw might have hid something beneath the planks that constructed it. In the empty, dark, and protected space between the earth and clicking of boots overhead, the cash and ammo stash would find comfort in the musty smell of damp dirt and cedar, if only it had a nose. It would be able to see at just a certain time each day through the dust-speckled rays of light let in by the cracks between the planks, if only it had eyes. It would listen to the melodies clicked out by the strides above, hanging on to every one, and instantly recognizing the steps belonging to its outlaw, if only the stash had ears. The dance floor was smooth, solid, and small, but just the right size. It lay nestled in the space between the stage and the bar. The stage, an easy step up from the dance floor, homed favorite local bands one night at a time. Intimate, quaint, and rustic are the words that best describe the Billy Goat Bar and Saloon. It exists complete with gravel parking and a bustling back door. I'd never witnessed a bar fight, but I'd confidently have betted that the goat had. We walked in, and butterflies fluttered in my stomach as I scanned the tables for Karen. The place was new for me, but it was in Gabe's neck of the woods. Gem Village is about 15 minutes away from Ignacio, the area of my delivery route and where Gabe lived. He seemed to know everyone in the rural towns of both Bayfield and Ignacio, or maybe it was more that I noticed that everyone seemed to know him. I had told him earlier in the week in passing that I'd be there. He knew Karen well. She had been one of his roommates a couple of years earlier. Seeing him outside of work and in a way that made so much sense was an extremely unlikely opportunity. The Billy Goat was a common location, and Karen's birthday made for common social ground for Gabe and I. Seeing him for a few minutes at a time during delivery stops on occasional work days was more likely. Sometimes I'd only see him in passing while driving, warranting an appropriate smile and wave. Sometimes we'd get lunch at Julie's and have time to visit, so hanging out in a light-hearted environment outside of work seemed really fun. Casually, I'd planted the information that I'd be at Karen's birthday celebration at the Billy Goat like a seed. I was secretly hoping he'd come, but it didn't feel right to want him to come, let alone asking him to. Since Henry wouldn't be there, I'd be able to visit with Gabe without any awkwardness if he showed up. I didn't have any reason to be nervous about entering the Billy Goat, except that it was new and not my usual crowd. I'd have felt protected and less vulnerable by my brown uniform. Instead, I wore brown, pointy-toed cowboy boots with navy blue Hurley slacks. The black long-sleeve designer diesel tee I wore had the word Valiente screen printed across the back in what looked like dripping brown paint. Valiente is an old Spanish word translating to strong or brave in English. My hair was platinum blonde and cut in the cutest stacked bob. I wore thin black eyeliner, mascara, and a very subtle shimmer on my eyelids. At 23, I was undeniably cute. The eyeliner made my pale blue-green eyes pop, and I smiled with white teeth and pale pink glossy lips. I spotted Karen sitting with one of our preload supervisors, Deanna, at a table a few yards from the door. Right in front of her was Gabe, his arms folded on a table in a black jacket and sitting with a couple other guys. He smiled as we walked in and leaned into one of the guys and said something. The guy, I would learn shortly after, was Karen's brother Clayton. There were several other friends from work there too, and the bar was full regardless of Karen's bash. Sean, who worked at Heapco where I first met Gabe, was the lead singer of the cover band. He'd regularly update me about shows he had planned to play, doing his part to spread the word when I'd deliver, and I'd always wished that Henry and I could go. So I was extra glad that his band was playing that night. We drank, laughed, and played some pool. I spent a little one-on-one time with Clayton to get to know him better. He was a firefighter in Alaska, he'd told me, and I was intrigued. He was so engaging, with sparkling eyes, dark hair, a strong build, and a larger-than-life laugh. He smiled with his eyes and danced with a contagious hop in his step. He was a lot of fun, and I could clearly see how he was related to Karen. When we returned to the tables after having a beer at the bar, Gabe seemed noticeably frustrated and annoyed by my absence. This amused me. It was as if we shared an unspoken secret that I had come to be with him. He didn't like the idea of my limited time being squandered away at the bar with someone else. We danced again and again. I could feel his eyelashes brush against my cheek, and he'd turn his head to clear our path. We made our way round and round the dance floor, twirling, spinning, and flipping. I delighted as if on a ride at an amusement park. Gabe made my country dance dreams come true that night, and I'd forever want more. He begged me to go with him. Melinda was ready to go, and I was having so much fun. She'd driven and hadn't had as much to drink as I did. She had been anything but captivated by Gabe and likely had thought that our flirting had gone on long enough. He pleaded with me to go with him instead. I was drunk. I wanted so badly to sit on the bench seat in his old white Dodge and explore what I couldn't from both the confines and security of my UPS uniform. Where would we go? I wondered. My conscience worked hard in the background to steady the effects of the alcohol. Is he offering to take me home? I thought, as if watching the two of us from behind a two-way mirror. He must be nuts, the police officer in me rationed, as I recalled how much he'd had to drink. I can still see his eyes as they bored into mine, doing his persuasive best to get me out of there and a little of my time to himself. He was nearly frantic. The clock was ticking, and he could feel it. Melinda grew more agitated by her unsolicited role of babysitter with each passing minute, and shifted her body weight in place nearby. He could sense my desire and curiosity and pressed on. My external awareness blurred. I could see his face, but the tables in the background and dance floor went out of focus. I could no longer hear him. I could just see a softened version of him, as if reality were muted and only a dream. I went deep inside myself for a moment and imagined going with him, unresponsive to his request. It would have been amazing to go with him, but wrong. I didn't trust myself, and I had no reason to go with him. I ultimately restrained all curiosity and impulse and told him that I had to go. I'd see him later, I told him. He was disappointed. He had gotten so close, if only in our minds, yet so far from having me to himself. I've wondered time and again what that night would have been like if I'd gone with him, and how the days might have unfolded in the months and years that followed. That's another book, I guess, a novel instead of a memoir. Melinda and I got in the car from the gravel lot, and I was both pleasantly drunk and high on the experience of the night. She was annoyed. I was so bummed to be leaving, or maybe it was more about the evening being over. But I was beyond grateful for Melinda, her level head, sobriety, and common sense. It was perfect. I got to have fun without making any mistakes. It was a harmless girls' night out, and Henry was unaffected. In talking to Karen later, she'd tell me what Gabe had said to Clayton that night when Melinda and I walked in. He'd leaned over, his elbow giving Clayton a little nudge, and said, "Here comes my next project." Karen had my back, though. She knew him well and had taken it upon herself to make clear to him that I was not that kind of girl. She'd recalled to me in her own words. She had met me for lunch en route at Cece's, a pizza place in Ignacio, the following week. My insides did somersaults as she replayed the dialogue of the night. She was clearly disgusted with him and was reporting the details to me in true friend fashion. I should have been shocked and disgusted right along with her. I hadn't disclosed the secret crush I had on him, though. She didn't have any idea that he had the effect on me that he did. No one did. Actually, I'd been trying my best not to notice it myself. With her news, part of me was flattered. I mean, I liked him and he liked me back. That was a fun feeling. But the other part of me was devastated. I was a project, and the next one at that. I took the statement to mean to him that I wasn't available, so it was fun to try. It was like a cat playing with one of those balls that cages a smaller ball inside. The inside ball is out of reach but rolls around jingling, putting on one hell of a show. The cat can see the imprisoned ball and goes berserk trying to get it. I was so the little ball. My cynical side was reassured, gratified, and more thankful for Melinda than ever. My better self chimed in like a fact check. See, I thought, he isn't worth it. You have your best friend by your side, and you should count your lucky stars that you don't have to deal with guys like Gabe for real. After that, the intensity of my secret crush got buried. The problem was, the goat hadn't killed it. It was buried alive. So that's the whole scene. Okay, I can't, this, not me. I'm moving my manuscript so then I can see. I feel like I see you, but you are like Wilson in the movie Castaway. Wilson, the volleyball that he talks to in the cave. Like, I'm looking at the little dot on the computer. That's you. That's my Wilson. But anyway, so my manuscript is gone now, and now I'm looking at you, and oh. So there were several things in there. I felt like I had spit at the edge of my mouth. Like I had like a piece of corn chip going around in my mouth, and that was weird. And then obviously some things I didn't pronounce super clearly, and then I stumbled over a few things, and then there were a few things that I would have changed. And then I kept worrying that I wouldn't say Henry where I needed to say Henry. So this video is 23 minutes long. For sure the longest ever. And for the next good week, I'm probably going to do 1-minute videos because I have a lot of work to do in other arenas of my life. Pretty by JL arenas of my life. And child's. The girls are going to come home soon and we're having a slumber party. Just us. But, you know, it's Friday. Happy Friday. Leave me a comment. I mean, even if it's not great, like I've talked about that before, please, I mean, any feedback is good. Like, I appreciate any feedback. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Like, the manuscript has tons of work, so there will be a lot of work on that, but this is my first pass, and so that's what it sounds like. Like, did you recognize the 2 chapters that I read? You know, and so then that's how they fit into that scene. So that was a scene. So, okay, I'm going to let you go. Okay, bye. See you tomorrow.